it is. Good morning, friends. Good morning. I was down a little too far, so that probably was waiting longer than I needed to, I believe. Anyway, good morning. It is Tuesday morning, March 1st, a new month. Wonderful, wonderful. And this is PB Reads the Bible. I'm PB, Pastor Brian, pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church. And this is episode 12 on our journey through the book of Judges. And yes, I know I said I was going to take a look to see what we would be doing next. I didn't do that yet. But I will do that over the next couple. I will try to get that done over the next couple days. So that we know what we're doing next, although we still got a couple weeks here. We're on day 12 chapter, and we're doing chapter 12, and there are 21 chapters. So after day, we still have nine chapters to go, so approximately 9 days, so basically 2 weeks. But go ahead and check in. Oh, I see some folks are checking in already. Good morning, Pat. Good morning, Cheryl. Happy Mardi Gras, yes. Or Shrove Tuesday. Shrove Tuesday. Today is also Shrove Tuesday. Good morning, Captain Kangaroo. Okay. And good morning to all. Good morning, Marcia. Good morning, Rob. Shrove Tuesday, which is mostly folks in the Anglican tradition. So Anglican is the Church of England. Episcopal Church would be the kind of the Anglican Church in America. And so if you'll see signs for Shrove Tuesday or advertisements for anything about Shrove Tuesday, in fact, St. Mary's Episcopal Church here in town is having their pancake supper tonight for Shrove Tuesday. So you might ask, PB, what is Shrove Tuesday? And I would say that's an excellent question. Shrove is an old word, an old English word, very infrequently used, meaning confess or to confess. So today is a day of confession in the Anglican Church and the Episcopal Church. That's where Shrove Tuesday comes from. Why pancakes? Well, the same reason for Fastnachts from the more German tradition. Same thing for Mardi Gras in that tradition, because gras means fat. Today's Fat Tuesday. It's the day you're supposed to use up all your fat, because during Lent you're not supposed to use any fat as a way of sacrifice and self deprivation, or whatever the right word would be there. So the Shrove Tuesday in the Anglican tradition is pancakes because of that. That was their thing, pancakes rather than donuts. And in fact, is it only England? There's a church in England, a town in England, that they have a pancake flipping contest where contestants not only have to flip pancakes in their pans, they have to do it while running. They have to run down the street doing it. Story is that a woman was making pancakes at her house when she heard the bell calling people to church, and she realized that she was going to be late for church, but she also didn't want to burn or waste her pancakes, so she took her pan with her, flipping the pancake as she ran to church. And then it became a tradition of doing that as well. Can't remember. It's not Olney. I can't remember the name of the town in England that's really big for it. Interesting connection to the song "Amazing Grace," because John Newton actually served as the priest, the Anglican priest in that town at one point. So, all kind of useless information for you today, we might say. Anyway, I had waffles. Does that count? Sure, Ron, that counts. Oh gosh. Especially if they were homemade, not if they were Legos or Eggos, not if they were Eggos. But if they were the homemade ones, you're good. Because you would have to fry them in some form of grease, butter, lard type thing. Anyway, probably more more stuff than you wanted to learn for today. So now we're going to turn our attention back to the book of Judges. We're going to look at Judges chapter 12. Pause in that thought. Announcements. Tomorrow, of course, is Ash Wednesday, and we've got some things going on. Our worship in the evening at 7 o'clock in person and live streamed if you wanted to join us that way. But also in the morning, I'll be down the street offering ashes to go to people who want that, and that's in the morning. I'll be there from 7 until 9. So tomorrow will be a video. So when you see me wearing the same shirt, I'm not wearing the same shirt 2 days in a row. It's that I did 2 of these sessions in the same day. So I'm probably gonna do the recording today and upload it for tomorrow, and it should go live at 9 o'clock. Hopefully that worked yesterday. So we're gonna go back to Judges now, chapter 12. When last we left Jephthah, let's remember where we are in the story. He defeated the Ammonites. We were expecting the very next thing to be a statement of, and he delivered Israel and he judged over Israel for 40 years. That's what had typically been before him. And that was usually the next statement. For Jephthah, it was not. The next thing is that story, the tale of him going home, his daughter coming running out, and him getting mad at her for doing that because now he was going to have to kill her. And it ends with him killing her. So we think that should be, this obviously has to be the end of the story. It's a sad ending, but it has to be the end of the story. And next we shall read that he judged Israel for 40 years and there was peace in the land. But we'll be surprised once again. So chapter 12, verse 1. We'll read the first 7 verses and then discuss them and then continue. The men of Ephraim were called to arms, and they crossed to Zaphon and said to Jephthah, "Why did you cross over to fight against the Ammonites and did not call us to go with you? We will burn your house down over you." Jephthah said to them, "My people and I were engaged in conflict with the Ammonites, who oppressed us severely. But when I called you, you did not deliver me from their hand. When I saw that you would not deliver me, I took my life in my hand and crossed over against the Ammonites, and Yahweh gave them into my hand. Why then have you come up to me this day to fight against me?" Then Jephthah gathered all the men of Gilead and fought with Ephraim. And the men of Gilead defeated Ephraim because they said, "You are fugitives from Ephraim, you Gileadites," in the heart of Ephraim and Manasseh. Then the Gileadites took the fords of the Jordan against the Ephraimites. Whenever one of the fugitives of Ephraim said, "Let me go over," the men of Gilead would say to him, "Are you an Ephraimite?" When he said no, they said to him, "Then say Shibboleth." And he said Sibboleth, for he could not pronounce it right. Then they seized him and killed him at the fords of the Jordan. 42,000 of the Ephraimites fell at that time. Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Then Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in his town in Gilead. Pause. Okay. So we got lots going on. I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me because my audio might not be quite the best when I do this because I've been having problems with my computer. Whenever I want to share screens or do things, it says sound will be affected. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Here's a map of the land, approximately at that time, and the tribes and who lived where. Okay, who lived where? So we've got all of the different places listed. Now Manasseh, the Jordan River is right here, and that separates the land of Canaan and the land of Israel proper from the Transjordan region, in which there are a couple different tribes of Israel who wanted to live there. This goes back to Joshua. If you read through Joshua, you'll you'll find most of this stuff. Rather than waiting until they crossed over, they kind of liked what they saw here. So Reuben and Gad said, hey, we want to stay here. And they were given this land. And you can see Ammon and Moab. So this is that land that in particular, and it goes back to Numbers as well. Remember Gideon or Jephthah spoke about this when the king of Ammon was beginning to have a fight with them. And he told that whole story and how God then gave the land over. So this is the land that the Ammonite king was complaining about, saying that they stole it. It's these tribes that are on the east of the Jordan. Gilead would have been up in this area, up in Manasseh, and you can see Ramoth Gilead is right there. And in this passage, it mentions Zaphon, which is approximately right in this area. We think anyway. That's where it's identified. So we think or are pretty sure that Zaphon is right there, just across the Jordan. Okay, so these are the ones here, and Gilead. Obviously, the Gileadites fought the Ammonites. Ephraim is over in here. And what about this area? What is it about this area? Well, this is a mountain region, and Ephraim is an important and looked up to tribe. Ephraim and Judah were two of the biggest and most important tribes, and they were very well looked up to. And if we think about so far through the book of Judges, they kind of live up to that. They're the ones that join in the battles. They're the ones that are sought out by the deliverers, by the judges, to come and help because of their reputation, because of who they are. And that's where we're getting to now. Now, a few things about what else is taking place. The Ephraimites refer to the Gileadites as fugitives from Ephraim, fugitives from Ephraim and from Manasseh, saying that this tribe is kind of creating themselves, but you're not really your own tribe. You're actually just rebels. You're fugitives from your real tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. Okay, I'll stop sharing the screen because that's enough with the map. You get the picture, so to speak, of how it looks and what's taking place there geographically and where they're coming from and going to. Okay, so this passage begins with the men of Ephraim called to arms. By who? By themselves, by their leaders. They aren't called to arms by a judge of Israel or anything like that. And they say why? They're upset because they weren't called to participate in the fight. If we think back a few chapters, we might remember a very similar complaint by the Ephraimites. 10 days without caffeine, 11 days without caffeine. If we remember back a few chapters, the Ephraimites had a similar complaint with Gideon because he didn't call them at the start. I should point that out too. As we went through the Judges, first the Ephraimites are called out, and when things are good, the first Judges, right before things really start spiraling downward, the Ephraimites are called to participate in the wars, in the deliverance of Israel early on, and they respond. They come. We get to Gideon, and they're not called early on. They're called to kind of wrap things up at the end, and they're upset about that. They tell Gideon about it, but Gideon assuages their complaints and their bruised egos, and they end up fine and peaceable. Here, the Ephraimites are mad. Not only were they not called out at the beginning, they weren't called out at like at the end, they weren't called out at all. So they feel completely ignored. They have bruised egos. They have bruised egos. And that's what they're complaining about. And they're ready to fight. They strap on they're called to arms by their leaders, we would say. Their their vow is somewhat empty. We the reader knows this. The reader knows this. They say we will burn your house down over you. Now, when they say house, they're not talking literal structure. They're talking his house, his name, his family. He has no children left. His house already has fallen down because of himself. And his house has fallen because of his own mouth and his own hand. So it's a little ironic that their vow, their pledge is that we're going to destroy your house. There's nothing left to destroy except killing him. Now, so Jephthah says, my people were involved in this conflict. I did call you, you didn't come. Well, that's nowhere in the text. The author doesn't tell us that until Jephthah says it right here. So we're left to think and to believe that Jephthah's lying, that he's a bald-faced liar telling them, oh, I did call and you didn't answer. You didn't pick up your phone. No, he's completely lying. Yeah, I tried. Yeah, you didn't want to come. So don't blame me. Mm-mm. So how much of the other things that Jephthah has said now can we trust? Can we trust that he is faithful to Yahweh, and that his belief is strong, or is all of that a lie as well? There's a lot of ambiguity here with Jephthah, a lot of unknown, a lot of ambivalence. Okay, so and again the Ephraimites. Oh, okay, pause. Just back up a little bit, Brian. Jephthah, then, we would expect him to try some diplomacy. He at least tried diplomacy with the king of Ammon, right? He tried diplomacy with the king of Ammon. He sent messengers, not once, but twice, right? He sent a couple different messengers, and he put forth his argument, his defense. It was only when the king wouldn't listen to him that they went to war. Jephthah, and that was against somebody who wasn't from his own nation. That was people from the outside. That was the enemy. Here we're talking about his brothers, his family, fellow Israelites, fellow countrymen, and he doesn't try diplomacy. He doesn't do what Gideon did to try to calm them down and soothe their bruised egos. He goes right to war. Okay. Remember what they call him. They call him and all Gileadites that they're fugitives from Ephraim. So in this war, in the very next line, whenever one of the fugitives of Ephraim, we're not talking about the Gileadites, we're talking about the Ephraimites who were trying to get home. They were trying to escape. They were ones that got through the battle and they're trying to get home. So now the author is referring to them as fugitives of Ephraim. Interesting play on words. And they take possession of the bridges. And we have this interesting tale of again, speech. It's coming down to speech. And in this case, it's It's not that they're pronouncing it wrong. It sounds that way when we read it. It sounds that way when we read it. But it's really tribal dialects. It's really tribal dialects. Israel's a pretty big space, and each tribe has their own way of saying certain things. Pennsylvania is not as big as Israel, but different places in the state have different dialects. I know that for a fact, having moved from one section to another section to another section. People say things differently in each location. So the Gileadites pronounce this word as shibboleth. Shibboleth. And what is shibboleth? It means one of two things. It can mean ear of corn, or it could mean a brook. So it could mean one or the other. We don't know for sure, because it could. Both of them work. It would be interesting if it's brook, because they're trying to cross over, the river, cross over into the other place. Sorry, not brook, stream is more accurate. So it either means ear of corn or stream. Stream makes more sense because they're trying to cross the river, but whatever. But they're using this difference in dialect, this difference in speech, to identify the people from the other place, and they're using it as a way to commit genocide, basically. And it's on Israelites. That's the point of the story. That's the point of the story. So this difference in speech, this difference in dialect, is being used to do that. It's not that they can't say the word, it's that they're used to pronouncing it in a different way. Shibboleth versus Sibboleth. And it tells us that 42,000 Ephraimites died that day. That's a lot. So we see how Israel is falling. We see how they are spiraling down. This is the beginning. This is a mini civil war. It is two tribes or clans or whatever within Israel fighting against each other. How much farther down can they fall? We're going to find out. We're going to find out. Not today, but we will find out in the not too distant future how far Israel will fall down that hole. So continuing, we'll finish up chapter 12, verses 8 through 15. But I should have said that verse 7 then finally gives us that information as far as how long he served as judge, which was only 6 years. Only 6 years. So we see that the judges are no longer as effective as they once were. After him, pause. This last part of chapter 12 is rapid fire succession of three more of the minor judges, which again tells us that it's a point of transition. It's a point of transition, a point of movement. So we'll find out something next. It's almost like the author knows we need a break too, right? To ponder what's happened, to try to understand things, and to contemplate really what's taking place with Israel. So we've got 3 minor prophets, and let's listen to these closely and read these very closely. After him, Ibzan of Bethlehem judged Israel. He had 30 sons. He gave his 30 daughters in marriage outside his clan and brought in 30 young women from outside for his sons. He judged Israel 7 years. Then Ibzan died and was buried at Bethlehem. Pause. So notice not only what it says, but also what it does not say. It does not say that he delivered Israel. That's different. That's different. He does not deliver Israel. That shows how ineffective he is as a judge. Not to mention the fact he only judges for 7 years. A little bit longer than Jephthah, but nowhere near as long as most of the other prophets who went before. And it would seem that, just like one of the other ones from the other day, based on what's listed there, he's more interested in like centralizing power and taking care of himself and his family. It speaks about his 30 sons, which would be his immortality and carrying on his life, and a sign of his virility by having that many. But he also has 30 daughters, and he marries them off and brings daughters in, and it speaks about all that. It speaks about all that. So where his concern is, where his heart is, we see where his heart is. Continuing, after him, Elon the Zebulunite judged Israel, and he judged Israel 10 years. Then Elon the Zebulunite died and was buried at Aijalon in the land of Zebulun. Pause. We get even less detail about him. But again, notice what it does not say. It does not say that he delivered Israel. It says he judged Israel 10 years. So that's a little bit better. But it doesn't say anything else about him. It doesn't say what he did. After him, Abdon, son of Hillel the Pirathonite, judged Israel. He had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode on 70 donkeys. He judged Israel 8 years. Then Abdon, son of Hillel the Pirathonite, died and was buried at Pirathon in the land of Ephraim, in the hill country of the Amalekites. End of chapter 12. And again, it does not say that he delivered Israel, pointing again to the lack of efficacy of the judges and the judge system. Perhaps Israel needs a new system. Perhaps God needs a new system for these people. Not yet, though. We're not done with the judges. And Israel has not yet fallen quite that far. But we also are wondering, we're also left to wonder, especially since these three, none of them say delivered. Is God fed up? Right? Is God fed up with Israel and with their continuous turning away? Is God no longer interested in delivering Israel? Is that why these judges didn't deliver Israel? We don't know yet. We don't know yet. So, my friends, thank you for joining me. Pray that this has been beneficial to you, that you've learned something in what we've said, what we've read this morning. I pray that God has spoken to you in some way through it as you go about your days, not just today, but every day. Keep those eyes and ears, physical and spiritual, open to what God is doing in your life and in the lives of those around you, because we do serve a loving, living, active God. When you see it, when you hear it, say, "Thank you, Papa," and then tell somebody about it. Be blessed, my friends. Be blessed. Bye.